It has been more than 5 months since a massive mudslide sent 2 homes crashing down a Sausalito hillside. And it could be another couple of months before cleanup even begins.
KPX5's Wilson Walker tells us the project appears to be tied up in red tape. Wilson?
Well, I am standing at 406 and 408 Sausalito Boulevard. Where are those buildings? Well, they are still sitting there. That's right. 5 months after the landslide went kind of running down this canyon and into the gully down there, all of this stuff is still here. And getting it all cleaned up, well, it has just run into a small setback.
There's also 5 cars that are up on the hillside that are buried. There's 2 cars right over here that are buried.
Crescent Avenue in Sausalito hasn't really changed much in 5 months. The debris from the Valentine's Day landslide still sitting exactly where it landed.
You know, a lot of these people don't have driveways. They have parking permits. Garbage and recycling has had a hard time getting up and down the streets.
Expect this thing to be cleaned up by now?
You'd think that they'd make some progress by now.
And progress is going to take a little bit longer. Sausalito is now having to relaunch the bidding process for the cleanup after failing to meet all of the criteria set forth by FEMA requirements necessary for that funding.
And we didn't follow that exactly. It's a very complicated federal process, and we haven't done that in the past. And so we missed a couple of the criteria, the checkoff criteria.
So the bidding process begins again. This time around, the city manager will have the authority to accept a bid on behalf of the council if that helps speed things up. Starting over, however, will push the cleanup back at least another month.
We're all very cognizant of the timing issues and trying to get that resolved and on its way.
All in all, yes, it's an inconvenience, but, you know, no one got injured, so it could have been a lot worse.
All right, let's step back a little bit and think about the circumstances that Sausalito finds itself in. Earlier, not too many months ago, we were in Paradise, where the city council there was telling folks that had moved back onto their burned out properties that they would have to move those trailers and subsequently leave again. Why? Because FEMA wasn't going to come in and clean up if people had moved back onto the property. So Paradise had to scramble to fit FEMA's demands. Now, let's talk about the Russian River and Guerneville earlier this year, where they had all the flood debris piled up on the side of the roads. What happened there? Well, they were having people coming by and dropping their spring cleaning stuff into that debris. What happened? Well, it threatened FEMA funding, because if FEMA finds stuff that's in there that's not from the flood, they won't pay for the cleanup. And here we have Sausalito, which is now sort of being very careful about how it hands out a bid for the cleanup here. Now, granted, these are all very different circumstances, different scales of disaster, but in each one, we have a municipality which is jumping hurdles and having to check every single box that it needs to check to get that FEMA money. So this is something we have seen before. Now, how long does this set them back? They think the cleanup's going to get going in September, but it ain't going to be fast. This is a big job. What do we see around September or October? More rain. So the hope is that they can get this cleaned up before it starts raining again. And there's one more thing I want to show everybody. I remember this from the day this happened, and it still kind of blows my mind. Look at the building here beside where this landslide happened, and look at just, I don't know what to call it other than the splash of the mud. Imagine the mud that's coming from up above us here, down the hill. It hits the house, it knocks the house. But there you can see the explosion of mud that went up against the side of the building that made it through here. So it was a pretty spectacular slide here in Sausalito. Amazingly, nobody killed. But again, getting this cleaned up is probably going to start now in September. We will see. We are live here in Sausalito. Wilson Walker, KPIX 5.